I'm expecting you to come in and, lead me and be excited about joining ministries and doing all the things that I was doing. And he just was not feeling that. But God knew that that wasn't the place for him to grow. And so he had to uproot us, like really, when I tell you, take me completely out of my safe space and move me all the way to Fort Worth, like took me away from my church family,
Right.
where we were living. We were living in Rowlett at the time. Like I had family close by, I had friends close by. The church was there, and the Lord moved us to Fort Worth with nobody because I think he had to detach me from me so that I can embrace him.
It's showtime. It's showtime. Guess who's back again? Well, they don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
They're going to know as soon as we walk in.
Okay.
Come on, Sam. Come on,
My
Sam.
bad. I jumped in.
Yeah. Yeah. There
Yes.
we go. There we go. What's up, y'all? Y'all are tuned in to the Couples Land Show. I'm your girl, Candace.
This is Remon.
And we are the dynamic duo of this show, husband and wife team. And we talk about love, marriage, and relationships. Ain't nobody doing it like us.
Because they ain't us.
And so we are glad to have you here today. We have some amazing guests in the
Yes.
studio.
Yes.
But before we get into this show, what they need to do, baby?
You need to hit the subscribe button and share out to a friend today.
So, y'all, in the building, we got DeAngela, who's a Delta. Yeah, baby. We got Sam, who's a Q. Baby. We got some special people in the building.
Wrong 1911, but we're not going to.
I told them, I said, I ain't going to tell him you're a Q until we get on. Yeah, so
I knew that was
welcome to
coming.
the
I knew that
show,
was
y'all.
coming.
Welcome. So they've been married over 10 years.
Yes.
I love the fact, I said I was going to title y'all show Authentic Love. Authentic
I like that.
Love.
I like that.
And to see them serve together in more ways than one. But of course, we know marriage is a ministry, but they also serve at our church in a capacity together. And yeah, that I don't know. I just think that's favor. God got his hands on y'all in a special way, and I think y'all realize it and seen it, and y'all even spoke about it. But go on and tell the people what's up before we get into the show.
Oh man, we just happy to be here. Sam and D, I call her D, so y'all can. I give y'all permission to call her D. Everybody that's watching. We just happy to be here. Been married 14 years. Both from Mississippi.
Okay. Where did you play, Jay?
I played at the University of Mississippi.
Same.
Same. Oh,
Same year.
That's
so
where
y'all went to school together.
That's where we met.
Okay.
That's where we met. Yeah. I saw her and I said,
That's her.
I got to have.
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
So tell us about your love story.
Oh wow! What year did it start? Your recollection of when it started might be different from
sophomores.
So my
juniors?
freshman year, you left. You were gone to the military.
Right.
But I knew Sam's sister, Charity. She lived across the hall from me, and she was always talking about my brother this and my brother that. And I'm like, where is brother? Like,
Yeah.
But he was at Ole Miss the previous year, but he left and joined the Army. And
so I left, and then I would come back when I would visit. Right. I'll come back on R&R, and I'll visit my sister and just visit the campus. And she introduced me, to her friend across the street. And the moment I saw her, I was like, can I tell them what you had on?
Tell us what she had on.
She was sitting in her bed. It's a dorm room.
Right.
Yeah, real plain, but she was sitting in her bed. She had this pink bonnet on.
it was a headscarf.
It was a headscarf. It was a headscarf, right? Just like regular clothes. I was like, man, from the moment I saw her, I knew there was something different about her.
Right.
Something special about her that I really wanted to know more about her. Yeah.
Alright.
And then I didn't know then, but later on I knew that it was love, right?
Okay.
When you really figure out what love is, what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's when I knew that's what it was.
Because we were friends all through college. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, so y'all never dated?
We didn't
No,
date in
we didn't
college.
date.
No.
Oh, wow.
But we were really good friends
Yeah,
in college.
we were
Right.
friends. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so she was always with my sister. So I was taking care of, you know,
Both
my
of us.
sister.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
so she got a lot of that too, just seeing about her. And so we just became close friends.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I guess from my conversation, see, assumptions. I just assumed y'all got
Dating in
together.
college.
Yeah, it wasn't until after college
Mhm.
that
Oh,
we
okay.
actually established a relationship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. So she moved out here to Dallas,
Uh-huh.
2006.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2006. And so I drove.
You helped
moved
move
her out
me
here.
here.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. In
wow.
2006, just still as
Mhm.
friends,
Right.
right? But she was always on the forefront of my mind.
Okay.
Everything that I was doing, the military and everything, she was always there. And so we just, sparked up, what we kind of always knew was there, but we never
Right.
really, tried to act on it.
Right.
And the rest is history. you
Okay.
know?
So what
Okay.
made you say yes? He saw the love way back then. What made you say yes?
Yeah, I knew that there was something different about him that I had not seen or experienced in anybody. And one of the things that really solidified it for me was I was telling a friend, like, if I marry someone, they're going to have to accept Sam as my friend. Like, there's no, he can't be your friend.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
And so, like, I knew that I'm willing to just sacrifice whatever relationship I'm in for this man.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
that's a real
That's how
extreme.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, he has to be that man because
Yeah.
nobody else can come in and say he can't be here.
Okay.
Period. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
That's Rico. I'm glad I named this authentic love. Like that was you was putting all the chips on the table from the jump.
Listen.
Anybody
yeah.
who came had
Anybody,
to know.
like he's a package deal.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah, y'all had to
All
be
right.
together because I don't know if no man would have
that's
been
what I'm
Right,
saying.
right, right,
Yeah,
right.
That's what I'm
know.
saying.
Wouldn't gonna be able
Okay.
to deal with that.
Yeah,
Right.
because the friendship was just so, like, I needed to be able to talk to him. I needed to be able to, tell him about the relationships I'm in and all the
Yeah.
things that's happening. I
Right.
needed to be able to have that friend in him. And so I just couldn't imagine someone saying, hey, I don't want you talking to
Yeah,
me.
it's
Right.
the
Yeah.
same go both ways, right? She was always there to counsel me, give me good words of advice as
Right.
relates to relationships, anything I
Right.
was doing. So anyone I was in a relationship with, they knew who she was. They knew
Right,
she was
right.
my friend,
Right.
even serious relationships.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
when you sit back and think about it, right, that's the foundation you want. To have
Absolutely.
somebody who's a friend first, right?
Yeah.
You can be yourself
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Man, I was just going to ask y'all that because I think, that's not no think. I know our friendship is what carried us
Yes.
in moments
Yeah.
where I was questioning this.
Yeah.
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 It was our friendship because in college, like my best friend, like we was together all the time. He kind of lost his mind once he pledged Kappa, but he was still like my dude.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how did y'all's friendship carry y'all in
Oh.
the marriage?
Yeah, that's basically the foundation of I can't imagine not having my friend.
Right.
And so it would be like two losses for me. I lost my husband and my friend. And so I couldn't imagine
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't, as a friend, I can't quit on a friend, right?
Right.
I'm gonna
Absolutely.
be there for a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got guys that have been my friends for 20 plus years that
Yeah.
they've gone through things. I've been there for them. And,
Right.
I wouldn't be there more for them than I would for her.
Yeah.
And so, as you think about things we've been through in our marriage, struggles that we've had, I think having the friendship,
Yeah.
it meant that I had a certain type of care and compassion for how she felt.
Yeah.
Not just as my wife, but as my friend.
Right.
And so I wanted to reconcile,
Right.
fix it, pray about it,
Yeah.
whatever it took to
Right.
get over that obstacle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I can just remember like one of my line sisters saying like just that. Like with our friends, we go through so much. We'll
Right.
get into it with each other. We'll be all right the next day. But when it comes to our spouses, oh now we into it now. We want to leave. It's like we will be more committed to our friends
Right,
Yeah.
than
right.
our spouses. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful to hear you all say like just basically if I quit on this, I'm not just quitting on the marriage. I'm
Yeah.
quitting on
Yeah,
my friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Do you guys have any kids together?
Yes,
How many kids y'all have?
we have two.
Okay.
Hannah, she's 10,
Okay.
and Joshua is 9.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Hannah is 10, going on 16, 17?
Maybe 17-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very
Okay.
mature for a
Very
10-year-old.
And Joshua's 9. He's a typical 9-year-old
Okay.
boy,
Probably
right?
going on 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
yeah.
In your marriage, did y'all come from 2-parent household? Did you have a foundation of seeing a healthy marriage, or did you kind of have to learn that on you guys' own?
I did not. I was actually raised by my grandparents. So my mom was not there. She lived somewhere else, and my dad has never really been stable, kind of in and out, birthday, Christmas type of a deal.
Okay.
And so I lived with my grandparents, who was a 2-parent home as it relates to grandparents, but that parenting is different.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so it was different for me, just in learning a lot about myself and learning a lot about relationships. Like, my grandmother took care of everything. My grandfather, he had a stroke when I was very young. And so I just saw my grandma just taking care of him and
Right.
doing all the things, running the whole house, could do anything. I don't know anything that she wasn't capable of doing. And so at a very early age, I learned how to be very self-sufficient.
Okay.
I don't know nothing. I don't know wouldn't know how to do. I'm gonna figure it out. Like, it was
Right.
just the way we were raised. Like, you figure it out, you push through, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my upbringing was the opposite.
Okay.
2-parent home, stable. My parents had been married 42 years now.
Yep.
Nice. Nice.
So, what I saw, the dynamic was, the dad was there to, be security for the family,
Yeah.
provide for the family,
Yeah.
anything that needed done. He was going to do it.
Yeah.
Decision making, he was going to be the final word on those decisions.
Right.
My mom was super nurturing, right? She was there taking care of the kids,
Right.
getting them from this place to that place, doing some of the typical things, right? You would think of when you think about a mom in a 2-parent household. But one thing I also had to learn was that's not everybody's upbringing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you have like family members that may not grow up that same way, or friends that you grow up with, you don't know really what it's like to grow up in a single parent home,
Right.
right?
Right.
If you have a 2-parent home,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
different once you get married, and have someone that grew up like that.
Yep. So me and his sister, like I said, we were really close. And so when we would go home on the weekends from college, I would go and drop her off at home and just get to experience her parents. And I was like,
Right.
this is so amazing. Like,
Right.
I just love to see it. They would have like church members and families over on Friday night, and they would invite people, and they had pool outside, and it was just so inspiring to me to see the community, the love, the connectivity of family, and the kids were running around. It was just something I had not experienced, and I
Yeah.
just loved being there. I'm like, I want to just hang out with y'all. Like, sometimes I would stay with her
Uh-huh.
at their house over the weekend, because I just love being in that environment, because I had not been in anything like that before. And so her parents became my parents. So
Yeah.
whenever I had a question or needed prayer or whatever I needed when I was in college, I've been calling them ever since. Like, I've been calling them since 2002
Mm-hmm.
and still calling them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that is special.
It
Yeah.
is.
And then so I can only imagine how they felt to have you as their
Their daughter.
daughter, like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
officially.
Yeah.
And wow, because they were a little surprised, because again, we had just been friends.
Uh-huh.
Right.
They were
You know,
surprised.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the sense of they didn't know that there was something more than friendship.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
But Daddy was trying to tell you. one
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
was. He was trying to tell me,
You need to go on and marry that girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
Go and get her son.
that kind of thing, right? As you start to get older, and I think from his point of view, you see your son is maturing, and you want him to have a spouse that can support him through life.
Absolutely.
Help him to become the man that God wants him to be.
Absolutely.
He saw how important that was, and I think
Yeah.
he only saw those attributes in D. And so he really he stopped, and he let me know that, hey, you need to get serious about taking advantage of the opportunity God has given you. So
Already.
So let's shift into talking about God.
mhm.
How do I want to word this? Has God always been a part of the marriage, or did you all have a moment where you was like, oh, we can't do this without God?
Good question.
I think God has always been a part of the marriage, but how much we allowed him to dictate the marriage is a different question.
That's a better way of saying it.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
he is always a part
yeah,
of it.
Yeah.
yeah. So, like, when we first got married, Sam when we were engaged, Sam was in Iraq the whole time during our engagement. So I was planning it here in Dallas by myself. And so when he came back, it was a different type of adjustment. And so he was just adjusting to being back. He was adjusting to, I've been in Dallas 3-4 years before you got here. And so I have a church family, I have friends, I have, my own life and things that are happening here that he's trying to adjust to. And so it was just kind of shaky, just starting out. Like,
there was some tension,
yeah,
to start off because, when I got back, I was trying to adjust just to normal civilian life.
Absolutely.
And so in trying to deal with that and not really understanding what that meant, or, what that felt like and how to address how I was feeling. Some of those things kind of spilled into our relationship. And so, she had a whole life. She had, Dee is very meticulous, right? She's in accounting, like every T has to be crossed, every I has to be dotted, right? And I'm kind of a freelance, let's just see what happens kind of guy. And so as I was dealing with a lot of those emotions, I wasn't allowing her in, a lot, and trusting her and being
doing that to us. Why y'all do that to us?
I was doing exactly that. And so it did it created somewhat of a wedge between us.
Yeah, and I was at a church that I really loved. I was growing. I loved my spiritual mothers there, and he just wasn't vibing with my church. I'm like, I love it here, but as soon as church was over, we would sprint to the car so fast. I'm like, I gotta talk to the people in the foyer, and he was like out of here. He didn't want to be involved. It was like, what's up? And I just felt away. I'm like, I'm expecting you to come in and, lead me and be excited about joining ministries and doing all the things that I was doing. And he just was not feeling that. But God knew that that wasn't the place for him to grow. And so he had to uproot us, like really, when I tell you, take me completely out of my safe space and move me all the way to Fort Worth, took me away from my church family, where we were living in Rowlett at the time. Like, I had family close by, I had friends close by, the church was there, and the Lord moved us to Fort Worth with nobody because I think he had to detach me from me so that I can embrace him and see him for who God had created him to be, and all the expectations that I was putting on him. Like, God had to remove me so I can clearly see what he was doing in my husband and not what I wanted it to be. So, and so we moved to Fort Worth with no church and nothing, no family. It was like, oh, I'm going to be so miserable out here. Like, we are in North Fort Worth. This is before they start building stuff out there. I'm like, ain't no Target, ain't no Chick-fil-A. Like, ain't nothing over here. Like, I did not want to be in Fort Worth. But God knew that was the place that, like, he had to, like, break me so he can build me up again to say, like, I'm the source. All that other stuff was resources that were available to you, but I need you to get back to the source. And so I had to just find God in my living room, like, in my home, because like I was so reliant and dependent upon that community. And God was like, now I need you to establish your own relationship. And you got to do it by yourself over here, apart from, like, they've poured into you, but you got to be able to sustain it on your own. And so, like, this really shows, can you sustain it? If you're not in that building, if you're not connected to those people, and you just have me, is that enough? Yeah. And so for a couple of years, we were just from church to church and place to place. And I was just like, God, you got to help me. You got to do something. You got to do something. And a random person told us about our current church. She don't even go to the church. Told us about our current church. And he was like, this is where we're supposed to be. And whole new person that I had never seen before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she kind of spoke to, it's important to be in the right community. Right. And understand community. I think when we started at our previous church, or our first church that we were in, I didn't understand community. Like, I didn't understand the importance of it. I was just going to church because that's what you're supposed to do, right? That's how I grew up. My dad's a pastor. You go to church. Right? You take your family to church. And so I was just going, I wasn't interested in doing any of those things. One thing I was dealing with was, there was a little bit of the trauma from the deployment, right? And I really wanted to be connected, and I really feeling comfortable being connected.
Right.
But the other thing was just an insecurity, right? And being insecure about what her walk with God looked like as opposed to mine.
Right. That's good. Okay, we're gonna have to. I'm gonna let you go on. Okay.
Yeah, but like, so I wasn't as mature as she was. I wasn't the prayer warrior that she was. I didn't want to read all the time and get into my Bible, and so I felt an insecurity about it, and I knew that in that space, right, that insecurity was hindering me from growing. But also being a husband, that God wanted me to be. So she's right. God had to uproot us. So not just so that she could develop a relationship that was apart just from the church, but was intimate with God, but also so that I could see what that looked like, right? Because what I saw was, let's go to church, let's go participate in this ministry, let's go do this. But once I saw how she had to go to God and develop the relationship, it spoke to me, okay, now, if you're going to be the husband that I want you to be, you're going to have to do the same. So she really was an example in that regard.
How did you navigate that? And I'm asking that because and this is no judgment, I really believe that sometimes the wives are leading in that area where it's the spiritual aspect of it, and just not going too deep. I think because we're so emotionally, this is how he created us emotionally, and men are more logical, and so you all tend to be in y'all head more, and because we are emotional, and all that God is that softness, and so there's a connection for us there with God. So when a husband sees, I know when we had Pastor Taylor and Brother Jimmy on, they kind of spoke to the different spiritual maturities, or men being intimidated about going to church because seeing how their wives respond in church. How does a husband navigate the space when his wife has that relationship with God and he's feeling that insecure part, but knowing I'm the leader and God calls me to a certain place?
That's a good question. I think one thing that we have to recognize is, in our particular case, without growing up with a father, she didn't know what it really felt like to receive an unconditional type of love, right? So I think the love that she had been used to was based on deeds and actions, right? I was going to love her unconditionally, so it made her a little bit. She didn't know how to react to it. She didn't know how to respond to it, and I think that because of that, I was frustrated. Like, I'm trying to love you. I'm trying to love you the way you should be loved, but she doesn't know how to receive it because she had no evidence of it. And that also, grew some type of wedge between us. And so the church, she was receiving that love. Like, she was receiving that love from the clergy. She was receiving that love from other ladies in the church. I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm doing that, right? I'm doing that, right? So I had to realize that I was giving her a love that she had never seen. She had grew up in the church. She had been loved by her grandmother. She had been loved by her, cousins and aunties. So she knew what that love looked like, but she didn't know what this type of love looked like. So I had to first recognize that. The other thing is, I had to die to self. Like,
you're going to have to explain that.
I had to die to self, right? So I had to die to what I thought, my expectations of what our marriage is supposed to look like, right? My mom, she spent her adult life being sacrificial to our family, right? You can see all the sacrifices she made to our family. And I was putting that expectation on her, right? And in a sense was, they say you marry your mom or you marry your dad. I was telling myself that was the case, but that's not who she is, right? And I found that because I had these expectations of her that weren't necessarily being met, not any fault of her own, right? I wasn't killing that pride inside of me. I wasn't sacrificing that pride inside of me. Once I realized that, man, you will not be the husband that you need to be for her, right? With everything that she has going on, without, you know, sacrificing your pride, sacrificing all these expectations that I did not give you, and really coming to a place where you can't do anything without God's presence, without his power. That's when I realized, okay, because I wanted to be like my dad. You know, I wanted to be that type of dad, right? It took care of everything, that type of husband that took care of everything. Wife didn't have to worry about this and that, right? And I thought I could do it in my own might. When God started to show me that, no, you can't, right? You can't do that. So if you really want to be who you want to be in your head, you're going to have to sacrifice all those things that you have inside of you, but who you think you should be, and be who I've called you to be. And once I, you know, really submitted to God to do that, that's when I started to really feel his hand in my life and grow in maturity. And once I started to grow in maturity, I started to grow as a husband, right? And started to be there for her how she needed me to be.
What does surrender look like?
You all over that.
I mean, man, it's just giving up your way, giving up your will. Just yesterday I posted on my Instagram that it's okay to pivot. It's okay to pivot because sometimes God is saying, surrender that, give me that, like that too, even that. Like it's a daily giving up what you thought things were going to be and surrendering it to what God wants it to be. And so I find myself daily having to surrender what I thought or what I thought I wanted or what I thought this should be and say, God, is this what you want? Because for me, I want to be comfortable. And he's like, girl, bye. You know, like
I love talking to D. I love when that silk come out and you just go home, girl, with me. I love it.
Like, no, like he really stretches me and he just have me out here doing things. I'm like, okay, God, it's me and you. Like being on this podcast, baby, I don't be on nobody's podcast. I don't go live. I don't just be out here doing the things. But God, if you're saying go, then I'm going. That's what surrender looks like to me. Like if you're saying it, if you're leading me, I know that you have gone before me. And that it's okay, that you make all of my paths straight, that it's okay. And so like there's safety in the surrender because if he said it, then it's good.
I was reading something this morning and it said surrender is the big brother to faith.
Oh.
You have to surrender your fear. You have to surrender your doubt. You have to, I was like, oh. Okay.
You really have to deny yourself. Right? Deny yourself, I think breeds, surrendering to what God's plan is. I think Luke speaks about how, you know, if paraphrasing, if you want to be a disciple, you deny yourself, you know, take up your cross and follow me, right? And so I think that we have to, you know, there's a parallel between taking up the cross and being closer to God, right? Being a disciple of God. I mean, I think daily, as Dee mentioned, it's something you have to do daily. It's not like you're not reaching for an end point, you know, to say, okay, now I've reached a point where, you know, I don't have to be intentional about taking up this cross to surrender everything I am, everything I have, everything I think I am to God and his glory and his mission for me. Once you do that, once you realize that that's a daily thing, like you should wake up every day figuring out how you're going to surrender to his will. You get a lot better picture of who you're supposed to be.
Baby, what you reading, man?
Somebody should have told me. Marriage, do you really know what it's about?
Y'all, we took the time to write this book just for you. If you're married, you engaged, or you thinking about marriage, you want to cop you a copy. It'll change your marriage. It'll change your relationship. All you got to do is go to www.lulu.com and get you a copy. It's $9.95, but it is really priceless. Welcome back. If you are just tuning in, You hanging out with the Couples Lounge show. I'm your girl, Candace, and this is my sexy husband, Remon. I don't know if we even said our name at the top of the show. And today we got D and Sam in the building hanging out, and we've been talking about marriage. We've been talking about God, because you ain't going to be able to do this without God. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I'm telling you.
So, babe, what you got?
Yes, my question is, with 2 young kids, both of y'all guys being involved in the church, what do you guys do to keep the flame going amongst you two? Because if you're not careful, especially starting off with kids who are so young, your whole life is pretty much dealing with the kids. And this too gets sacrificed if you're not careful. So what do you guys do to help keep the flame going and keep with
Well,
each
I have
other?
a question. Why are you bringing church with that?
No, well, I said that because you can be busy in the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you're working in the
With
church,
ministry.
that's a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of time.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
saying,
a
well,
lot of
That's a good
hours,
point.
days in the
Yeah.
church. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
there's
get it.
nothing
That's
wrong
why-
with it,
yeah.
but outside of church, what are you guys
Yeah.
doing to keep the flame going?
That's a good point, right? Because we are, really involved in the church. We become more involved in the church these past few years than ever
Right.
before,
Right.
in ministry together.
Mhm.
So that does take a lot of our time and
Absolutely.
our emotional and mental focus.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
geared towards
Yeah.
what it's not just when we're in the building. It's
Right.
at
Oh, yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Thinking about what can we do to apply ourselves to the kingdom.
Right.
And our kids.
Yes.
Especially the older they get,
Yes.
they're involved in so much more. They have new interests, and we
Yeah.
want to, encourage those interests. And so
Absolutely.
it takes a lot of time. I think for us, we like to eat.
Okay.
Listen.
Okay.
Help me.
Okay.
Listen,
Okay.
we enjoy eating.
Right.
We really try to set aside some time to find new places to experience.
Okay.
To
Okay.
eat. That's our therapy.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are many types of cuisine in the DFW area that we
That you haven't
haven't
tried.
experienced.
Okay.
I'm talking about all over. But we set aside some time to dress up,
Okay.
pamper each other,
Already.
do massages.
Mhm.
Okay.
We enjoy that kind of thing.
Okay. See, I ain't never got a massage. I ain't.
Yeah.
You gonna go with me?
Nah.
Hey,
Nah.
listen.
I
His
go.
boy want to stay in the box so much. I be
We
trying
got a
to get
whole
him out the
subscription.
box.
Yeah, you gotta see what you do. You get a subscription.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That way you paying for it every month.
So
and
you
you're
gotta
not
go.
gonna, you,
Right.
you're gonna go.
Yeah.
Just try it one time,
I
son. Just once.
Well,
and
I
then if
will
you
do
don't
at
like
least
it, then you
once.
don't have to do it again.
There you go.
Just
Yeah.
try
I
one.
like that.
Don't be setting them no dates you know I ain't gonna want to do.
Yes,
Really?
that drives me.
You gotta be.
Listen,
Talk to him.
I'm the same way. Listen, we're when it comes to interests, in a lot of
Yes.
ways, we're opposite.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that, especially vacations. Like we go on
Yes.
vacation. She's the vacationer where she wants to relax,
Yes. See,
lay down
me.
on the beach,
That's me.
hear the
I just wanna
waves in her
chill.
ears.
Yeah.
You trying to be
And
out.
he climbing the mountains.
Listen,
Yes.
I'm trying to see what
Right.
Child,
what does
no.
it have to offer.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
and so I really have to be aware that that's important to her.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
important that I experience things that she likes with her.
True. That's true.
And
That's
so it
true.
took me a while. I had to get there.
Dude, don't act like
But
I
I had
don't.
I had to get there.
Right.
So I
Okay.
try to do that. But date nights are
Yeah.
big for us.
Date nights are big, and so like even with us being a part of committed marriage ministry, like it keeps it on the forefront of our minds. So
Yeah.
like we don't have to just assist in planning it for other couples, but we have to be intentional about doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
God is so intentional about what we need and in what season.
Mhm.
And so because we were committed,
Mhm.
but we weren't like part leadership and
Mhm.
committed. We weren't a part of the team. But I think God was intentional about that because he needed us to be intentional about us.
Yeah.
And so like
Mm.
I know y'all gonna be at the church. So
Yeah.
let me get you involved in something that's
Yeah.
going to not only focus on your walk with God, but help you focus on each other as
Yeah.
you're walking with God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because we had to teach lessons and different things in committed, it helps us to reinforce our own commitment
Yeah.
Okay.
to each other
That's
and
good.
just be intentional about Cause God be checking me like you can't stand before these people teaching nothing you ain't doing.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Integrity.
listen. So
we
like
fear
you
God too much for that.
listen, yeah.
Exactly.
So like when we going through the lesson, I'm like, check me, Lord,
Yeah.
before I get in here saying
Yeah.
anything about the lessons and doing the things like just really making sure that I'm walking in what I am encouraging other people to do. But I think we just having that extra like just having committed in and of itself
Mhm.
really helps us to stay focused on each other in a way that we probably would have just been doing all the things instead of
Yeah.
just focusing on each other. And another thing too, like we love date nights, we love to go out, but like now that my aunt has moved back to Texas and she's in our neighborhood, we take her up on all the offers to get these kids. Like
Yeah.
like you say you want
yeah.
them for 2 nights? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Let's get these clothes together.
Right.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, you
yeah.
can't just leave the clothes over there.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
So we don't plan all the date nights. Sometimes
Yeah.
they just happen.
Yeah.
Like she'll call and say, "Hey, what the kids doing? I want
Right.
to get them tonight." Cool.
Cool.
Yes.
Hey,
Big.
they on their way.
Let's go their way.
We on, I
Right,
remember
With
the
the
day.
quickness.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember
You
the
need
day.
snacks? We got snacks. You want some juice? What you want us to
Right,
bring?
Yeah.
yes.
I was just telling him, look, my daughter is 17 and Courtney is, of course, she has cerebral palsy, but she's 26. I was just text him. He was asleep, but I was up. And I'm like, look, if we got to even tell him, y'all going to y'all grandparents' house.
Everybody go.
17, drive yourself over there.
Yeah.
And we better have us just
Yeah.
some time
Yes.
together because,
Yeah.
it is definitely needed to keep
Yeah.
the friendship
Yeah.
Absolutely.
solid.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have those moments in your relationship where the mountaintops, but sometimes you may dip down in the valley sometime, and you got to have that foundation, or you
Foundation.
got to
Yeah.
put in as many credits
Yep.
in the
Yeah.
bank as you
Yeah.
can, just in
Yeah.
case a withdrawal comes present. And I know on our call y'all mentioned trauma showing up in your
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And I'm really big about childhood and how we are bringing that to the surface so we can heal. So God can, I need you to heal this because I know I know the plan.
Yeah.
So you got to deal with this.
Yeah.
And it's the power of marriage is that it does bring it forth. So how did trauma show up for y'all?
I don't even know where to start. Like I think even too, Candace, just sitting in your book club, I realized the amount of trauma. Like I knew I had some things I needed to work through, but like just in reading Dr. Anita's book and just sitting through book club, I just started to like write it down, and I was overwhelmed with emotion that, man, this is what my husband has to deal with. Like all this stuff that I've brought to the table for him to deal with. And I was like, I got to be better for him. Like, I got to work on me because, child, I wouldn't want you coming to me with all this stuff you got going on. And so, like, and he so graciously loves me. Like, I just wanted to be better for him, for my children. And so, yeah, I just came with a lot of stuff, just a lot of abandonment issues and rejection issues and all these things that he was trying to carry that he didn't even create. But he's carrying it. It was bad. Like, it was a lot just to, when I start to just itemize the list of things. And so I was like, I got to do the work. I got to do the work because I'm not showing up as my best self for him or anybody else, And so just started working through it. And it's just, for me, it's been so freeing. It's been just like, I regret that I didn't start doing the work sooner. Yeah. But yeah, it just a lot of things. Like, I wrote a poem some years ago to like fathers to say, like, you can create a lot of trauma for your kids that their husband, your daughters, that the husbands will have to bear, and they didn't create that trauma. Just being the role of the father and how important it is, and who your child grows up to be, and how she parents and how she responds to her own husband. Like, the father really plays an important role there. And I'm just so grateful for my husband that the love that he has for me is redeeming. Like, I don't care how crazy you are. There's nothing. I'm coming for you. I'm still coming to get you.
Yeah.
I'm still bringing you back in. I'm still going to love you through it. Like, in my own mind, I'm like, this girl crazy. This girl is crazy. But his redemptive love is really, like, God really showing me in the flesh of what it looks like to be loved by someone unconditionally. No matter who you are, what you're doing, what you got going on, how broken you are. Like, I think God had to show me that in the flesh. To be able to truly embrace that from him in the spirit. But yeah, so God's so intentional about me. Like, man, I want you to get it. But you ain't getting it. You like Thomas. You got to see it. And so I got to give you somebody to help you to see it. Yeah.
I remember you saying that in book club. So when we was on the pre-call and you brought it up,
Yeah.
I remember you saying how Sam loves you.
Man.
Despite the trauma that you knew you carried.
Listen.
And I'm like, and now even hearing you talk about it like in person more in depth.
Yeah.
I believe that is the love that God calls for a husband when it's talking about love her to where she doesn't feel like she got a stain or wrinkle. Like, that's a special kind of love. So I applaud you,
Thank you.
for loving her through, as she's saying, this girl is crazy. Loving her like God has called you to love her. And I know you said that you saw the trauma, but you didn't realize what it was calling for you to do.
Yeah, I think,
Can you talk about that?
You know, when we were disconnected at some point. We were dating. We broke up and got back together, right? And I remember right before my sister, she called me. Were you already on the phone?
No, I think y'all called me on three-way.
Yeah, we called her, right? We called her on three-way, and God was just telling me then, right? This is your calling, right? He knew my desire to be with her, right? But at that time, he told me, this is your calling. So from that point on, there was nothing else, right? There was nothing else that was going to stop me from, making this work. Eventually got married and started a life together, but the idea that I was called, right, to be her husband, it's different from saying I'm just going to remain committed to you in my own might, right? We've been together a long time, so I'm going to go ahead and marry you because we got, so much time built into this, right? But God has called me. So I fear God, right? God says you're supposed to go do this clearly. I got to go do it, by any means necessary. I think it's Ephesians where, God talks about how Christ loves the church, right? And that how you are to wash your wife with the word and present her back to yourself, just like Christ presents the church back into himself, right? If no matter what her trauma is, we know how the church can be, right? We know, some of the bad rep that the church can have, but God still loves the church, right? Even in all of its quote unquote mess. God has called me to do the same thing for her. So it's really not about me, what I'm doing, right? It's all about, how God has called me to love her just as he loves me. And I really feel the love of Christ every time I open my eyes. And so how much more should I love her? How much more should I wash her with the word and present her back to myself exactly how I would want to see her? And understanding that that's my responsibility. It's not her responsibility. She's a married woman now. God has given her to me. So it's my responsibility to present herself back to me how I want to see her, and there's things that I have to do. I have to wash her with the word. I have to spend time with her in the word. I have to love her. I have to show her his unconditional love. I have to be compassionate in how I communicate with her, considering her trauma, right? Considering how she may have been communicated with by other men in other relationships, and how that has skewed how she receives communication. I have to be intentional about that communication to make sure that I'm showing the love that God has called me to show her.
Did you have to learn that, or was that something you kind of had from the get-go?
I had to learn it.
Okay.
I had to learn it. I had to spend time in with God separate from her, right? So that I could be prepared to show her that love, and that's an ongoing thing. That's a daily thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
To show her that love. In my two parents, not like I don't have trauma, right? 'Cause I have a level of trauma. My two parent household, my mom dealt with depression for years, right? You could say most of my childhood, and D has dealt with some of that, right? And in my childhood, I kind of detached myself, right, so that she wouldn't, dive into deeper depression. I was doing everything I could to stay out of her way, this and that, right? And I found myself kind of shutting down when she would express some of that depression, right? But God called me to be in a place where I can support her through it without having to force her out of it, right? It's not my job to bring her out of it, but it's my job to be a presence, right? So that she can lean on when needed to come out of those moments.
Look, y'all, my mind is going 100 miles an hour because I'm hearing, like, when y'all are talking, I'm hearing from either other experiences and word and stuff that I have read. So it's almost like just confirmation coming out of y'all mouth. But even when you just this last part, you went through what you went through with your mom so you can be able to be what you needed to be with your wife. And although you found yourself shutting down, but it's like, I prepared you for this. I already prepared you.
He allowed me to recognize it.
Yeah.
If my mom didn't, struggle with depression, maybe I didn't even recognize. Maybe like, man, you just doing too much, right?
Yeah.
I remember like you tripping. I'm leaving. I'm gonna go take a drive, right? So if I leave the house and go take a drive, what is that triggering her? That's her abandonment, right? So I had to have seen it, right? God is intentional. He knows what He's doing. And we have to go back to what you're saying, surrender to His will and as it relates to our lives and His plan for us.
Do y'all think marriage and our role as husband and wife is truly a calling?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely ministry. It's definitely ministry for us and for those that we are called to. Because, marriage is the reflection of Christ's love for the church. And so in Him standing in the role that Christ has for the church and me being the church, I just think about the church and how fickle the church can be and how unstable people can be and how but once they get it and they understand the perfect love of Christ, they start to submit and surrender to that. Once I got it and start to understand the love that He had for me, I can submit and surrender to that. Like, I want to serve you. I want to do all the things. In the same way with the church, you want to serve, you want to give to God, you want to be of service to the people around you. Like you are, there's a safety there. And what's coming to mind is how perfect love casts out fear. Like, I'm not afraid to love you now. Like, I'm not afraid to surrender now because the perfect love that you've shown me shows me that there's safety here. There's security here. And in the same way, we have that same safety and security in Christ. But like, I know, and Sam used to say it all the time, and it used to irritate me. Like when people would say, like, how y'all got together, and he would say, because the Lord wanted me to marry her. And I'm like, that ain't all cute and nice, like that ain't like I was just so in love with her, and it's like because the Lord said it, but like because the Lord said it. Because the Lord said it, and we didn't say it for ourselves. That puts another level of commitment on it. That I'm doing this for the Lord. Like, I'm doing this because God called us together, and so I can't call us not together because I'm under authority. You know what I mean? And so like, if God said it, then okay, we rocking with that. And I think God is intentional about who He puts together and why and what the impact that is going to be on the kingdom. I think when He said to be fruitful and multiply, it wasn't just about kids. It's to bear fruit and multiply that in the nations. Like, multiply that in your church, in your family. Like, what fruit are you carrying? What fruit are you producing? And so multiply it. Make disciples. Be a part of your discipleship program at your church. Like, God called us together to be able to do that. And I can honestly say, as we've served together in ministry, God has even elevated us in our marriage because it was supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be doing the will of God together as one. and he gets the glory out of it. And he says, delight yourself in me. I'm going to give you the desires of your heart. Like as we're delighting ourselves in him, he's giving us what we want in this marriage as we're serving him as one. So it's totally ministry. And I can't even imagine how he was doing this before we were serving together.
That's
like,
the thing.
Yeah. Like, what were we doing?
Right?
Yeah.
His grace kept us. Right. In the moments where like, what? Did I make a mistake? Like, God, I know you called me to do this, but it ain't supposed to be this hard. Right. But once we started serving together, once we started serving each other, as it relates to growing in Christ together, and growing in community with other believers together, man, we start to take off in our marriage, right? So even when we are apart, right, you know that we're married, based on the calling that God has on our lives, right? We're in ministry. I might be in ministry with men, she might be in ministry with women, but because of how we've grown in ministry together, we're able to bear that fruit, right, with other believers. That's how you know it's a calling to be married and be in ministry together. That's what it's about, being ministry together, discipling. Right, I'm required to disciple her. Right?
As her husband.
As her husband.
Absolutely.
I'm required to disciple her, so I have to maintain a relationship with God, that allows me the capacity to do that.
And I just think if more people, and I'm probably going to say somebody should have told me right now, which is where you give what you want people to take from the show, is that marriage is a calling, and if we really looked at it as God is what put this together, you're going to move different in your actions. Like I say it all the time, like we didn't really find out the design and purpose of God until we almost got a divorce. And that was 10 years into our marriage. And I just think of how I would have moved differently, even coming up in a 2-parent household, being in church all my life, if I would have looked at marriage as a covenant and a calling on my life to be for him what God says Candace needs to be as a wife.
Listen.
Some of the stuff we went through, we wouldn't have went through. So I just hope you would start looking, whoever's watching this, look at your marriage as a calling, as a true covenant for God. And if you got any type of relationship with God, you will get convictions when you out of alignment. And be obedient to what you feel when it's like, no, I don't want you doing that. I don't want to show you big time that I don't want you doing that. I'm just tapping you right now. I'm giving you that intuition, but you got to change that up. So I'm glad you all shared that.
And see, hearing you say that makes me wish that our marriages required premarital counseling. We got it, but when I say it was so surface, it was like,
we
okay,
couldn't
go to
remember
work.
nothing when we needed it.
Go to work. Make sure you have a job. Sleep in the same bed. All right, y'all ready?
Ready.
Like, that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't prepare us at all, and I wonder how much more marriages will be successful if our couples had real premarital counseling.
Faith-based.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And like, not just for 2 or 3 month time so we can get to the altar, right?
Yes.
Some extended time.
Right.
So in that period of time, as you watch that person change, because they're going to change, they're going to grow.
Absolutely.
Now what? How do you deal with that? And talk through that. That premarital counseling, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's super important.
Absolutely.
How did y'all deal with your differences?
Was it difficult as well?
Well, we know it's difficult to deal with differences. Differences be all cute at the beginning.
What's
how my babe do like this, and then it be like, he do like this. He doing it like this.
What's our biggest difference? I think I know what I think. I'll be interested to know what you think.
Let me hear
it. Okay. I think the way we communicate is probably one of our biggest differences.
Okay. That's probably out.
Right. Communication is probably the utmost importance in marriage, right? And so one thing I don't think we realized initially, at least I didn't, is how she communicates is learned. So when growing up, my dad's from Nigeria.
Okay.
You know, my
Yeah,
mom.
D say she more
Yeah,
Nigerian than
she
you.
say she more Nigerian than me,
Your
right?
mom as well?
My mom's from Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Two polar opposite cultures.
Yes.
Right. But my dad was, Nigerian culture is big on respect.
Okay.
Right. And I was really amazed how my mom kind of accepted that. Right. And she showed my dad this respect. And so I came into the marriage understand, okay, this is how you're supposed to respond when I talk. This is how you're supposed to respond when I say we need to do this, right?
Yeah,
That's just what I learned.
Yeah.
That's not what she saw growing up, right? She didn't see that. She didn't see men being that authoritative figure, right? Like she said, her grandmother took care of her, took care of the home. And so that's just what she saw. And so sometimes we would discuss something, maybe, an intense conversation, and her voice would raise. Right? And I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
We ain't doing that, right?
Yeah.
I would tell her how I feel like that's disrespectful. And she would say, well, I'm not raising my voice. I'm just talking. What I had to realize was that's just the environment she grew up in. People raise their voice. They're loud when they talk to each other. It's not really that they're mad at you or they feel some kind of way. That's just how they talk. I didn't grow up like that, right?
Right.
And so how we communicate with each other, she had to be aware, okay, this is how it's her responsibility. God says to show me respect, right? First, right? And once, she is serious about her relationship with God, about the commandments of God, she wants to do that, right? And so once she realized that, she started to shift or be aware of how she communicated with me, right? Okay. And it's not that she saw it as disrespect, because she didn't, but I did,
Right?
And so that meant something to her, right? And just how it is important for me to communicate with her about things that I don't think may not be worth communicating. I mean, I need to tell you about this, or somebody said that, or whatever, right? Because
It ain't that big.
it ain't that big, right? But to her, it's super important, right? Because of some of the things that she went through, trust, right? Being open, don't let me think that, don't make me investigate, because she's the best investigator you could ever find. Right. Right. And so I have to learn that. That's important to her, right? I have to learn that. I have to I need to communicate things to her that may not be big to me, but are big to her. So both ways we have to learn things about each other. And those are some of the bigger differences that I think we have to work on intentionally every single day about communicating the right way.
Yeah. I saw a lot of men who didn't respect their households, and I didn't see a lot of healthy relationships. And so my trauma says,
We ain't doing that.
yeah. Like, I think it was fear. It was fear of, like, you're not gonna be controlling me. You're not gonna be telling me this or the other. Like, I can do this with you, without you. That's kind of what the trauma was feeding into me. And so just really having to learn and, like, no, like, that's not who I've called you to be in this marriage, or period. And so, like, he would share that with me often about, like, raising my voice. And to me, I really didn't think I was raising my voice. Like, I feel like I just talk loud. I'm from the country, honey. We be talking loud. And so, I'm talking loud. Like, like me talking to you right here, to him, that's too loud. Like, that's too loud.
It really be baffling. I was like, you don't really hear the octaves in your voice.
Like, you're too loud.
Oh my God.
Listen, and I'm like,
I got camcorders in the house.
I'm like, I'm not even screaming. Like, you ain't heard screaming.
Yeah.
You have not seen disrespect. Like, this is normal. Like, it's what I'm saying. And let me tell y'all, I gotta tell them about how you tried to bring me down like a fraction. So
I don't even know what she about to talk.
He raised his hand one night at Committed to ask about, what if, he was like, I just got a generic question, like, what if your spouse is raising their voice and you don't like their tone? And so pastor said, that's an abusive spouse. And I'm looking, my legs start shaking. He was like, in the same way, if a man is hitting on you, like, that's, and he can't say, I just grew up like that. there's no excuse to say I just grew up like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're still being abusive, but with your words
Right.
instead of with your hands. And so I was so embarrassed. I was upset that he raised his hand and then asked a question and Pastor done told the people I'm an abusive spouse. But like I was when I got in the car, I was like, I ain't coming back to commit it. I ain't doing none of this. I was like, get me out of here. And so when I was talking to the Lord about it, because I had worked on it. Let's just talk about this. I had worked on it and I was doing so much better.
Full disclosure, right? It wasn't a question that we were necessarily dealing with. What God did was, because we had been doing so much better in the area, I wanted someone else, to hear the testimony.
Right.
But I probably could have asked the question a little differently, right?
Okay.
But God, again,
I'm doing
In
better
control.
here. Yeah. And so
God's
here
in
you go,
control.
raising your hand at the church telling the people. And so what God revealed to me was, you are doing better. Like, but that thing is still in you. And I will embarrass you to free you. I will embarrass you to free you, because it hadn't had an opportunity to rise up again. And so I'm trying to kill it. And so like, I got to embarrass you in front of these people so that you can recognize that there's still something there that you haven't fully surrendered, that you haven't fully given over to me. Like, you know, you're working on it, but the right circumstance hasn't arrived for you to go left again. And so, honey, I understood it. Like, I understood it in a way. It's always going to be in the forefront of my mind now, because like, he was like, I had to do that because I need you to let that thing die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He love us that much.
Listen.
He love us that much.
does.
Man.
He
And
does.
look, that's like when Sam was like, I could have said it. No, you said it.
Yeah, well,
How God
how
needed
God
you to
was
say
saying.
it
Yeah.
so
wanted to
deep.
say
Yeah.
it.
Could
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
experience.
Listen.
And I just
Exactly.
wish, I don't know, if y'all are listening and really listening to all the shows on the Couples Lounge, I don't think it's ever a show where people are not bringing up childhood. It plays a part in our relationships.
Yeah.
And if we could just look at it as like, God is like, I'm trying to bring it up.
Yeah.
And not pointing the finger at your spouse. We got to look at us first.
Yeah.
And if it's something we need to address with our spouse, absolutely you go and do that. But we gotta look at us.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
gotta look at us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to have a little fun real quick. Just,
Okay.
And to answer the question, I just want you to raise your hand. Who's the better cook? Okay. Who's the spender? Who's the most patient? Okay. Who's more romantic?
Both of them.
Maybe you.
Okay. Who's if the kids have an issue, or no, if the kids want something, who are they coming to first?
Jesus, help us, Lord.
Who's the one, is if one person had to clean the house, somebody's coming over and make sure everything is tidy, who's the one? Who's the most athletic? Okay. And I saw that on the show, and couples was no. It was, and I just wanted to have a little fun with you guys real quick to hit that.
Yeah, I try to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can barely boil water.
Oh,
man.
he's
Oh, my
not lying
goodness.
at all.
Okay.
I remember remember when I would go home with his sister when I was in college, and his mama had him boiling some hot dogs for the event, and the hot dogs was just busting open. Like, I'm like, this man can't boil a hot dog.
But that's what it's done. It ain't done unless it's bust open.
It gotta be bust open, right?
Hot dog, I need it bust
Come on,
open.
come on. That's when it's good.
All
Thank
of
y'all so much.
Absolutely.
We enjoyed it. This was great.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Man.
So needed.
Yeah.
So needed. Like, as y'all talking, I'm like, oh, the people is blessed. The people are going to be blessed from this show. So thank y'all so much.
Absolutely.
I gave my somebody should have told me.
And mine was the same thing. I really
You
would have
can't
picked.
do that.
Huh?
Pick your own or repeat it. You can't do that. It's cheap.
No, it's not
That's
cheap.
cheap.
No, baby, don't do this.
Go.
Don't
Go,
do this.
baby. You got to
No.
do your own. Look at your camera. There it is.
My somebody should have told me is when your spouse give an answer, don't make them give you another answer. You know, rock with them. Be a good husband and good spouse and listen.
Thank y'all for tuning in to the Couples Lounge show.
Absolutely.
Thank y'all, D and Sam.
Absolutely.
Thanks
for having us.
Thank you for
Yes,
having
it was
us. It's been a
amazing.
blessing.
It was.
We'll see y'all next week.